So I'm sure that some of you have heard that Bill Cosby has been freed from prison. This has probably also triggered a lot of outrage among people online, and for very good reason. And there are people who seem to be a little bit confused as to why this is taking place. I see it in chat now. It's prosecutorial incompetence. Unfortunately, I'm going to read a quick article for you guys, and we can talk about that afterwards. This is from theweek.co.uk. I know, British people, but we work with what we can. Bill Cosby was released from prison yesterday, it's a couple days now, after serving just 2 years of a maximum 10-year sentence for sexual assault, which he was very fond of, by the way. Anyway, in a stunning turnaround, Pennsylvania's highest court overturned his conviction after ruling that a non-prosecution agreement with a previous prosecutor should have barred the entertainer from facing any charges in the case, which marked the first high-profile celebrity trial of the Me Too movement, said the LA Times. Bill Cosby is a wretched, miserable piece of shit, and it is truly sad that he is free right now. Let's see. The non-prosecution agreement was made after Canadian former basketball star Andrea Costand came forward in 2014 with allegations that Cosby had drugged and assaulted her at his Philadelphia home a decade earlier. Cosby had been a mentor to Costand, then employed at the city's Temple University employee, the LA Times reports. In the wake of her claims, he was arrested in 2015 and found guilty of 3 counts of felony indecent assault by a jury in 2018. After being sentenced to between 3 and 10 years in state prison, however, the actor is now free following the ruling of a panel of Pennsylvania State Supreme Court judges yesterday. Unfortunately, I think that they were right to do that. The decision centers around a non-prosecution agreement struck with Montgomery County District Attorney Bruce L. Castor Jr. in 2005. The attorney gave Cosby his, quote, assurance that he would not be charged in the case, the New York Times reports. Castor testified that while there was insufficient evidence to bring about a criminal prosecution, he had given Mr. Cosby this assurance to encourage him to testify in a subsequent civil case brought by Miss Constant. According to court records, there was no evidence the immunity promise was ever put in writing. Cosby subsequently made several incriminating statements during depositions that were later used by Castor's successor in the 2018 prosecution, including admitting that he gave sedative drugs called Quaaludes to women he was pursuing sexually. The basic gist of what took place was that people have been trying to get at Cosby for sexual assault for a long time, and there was evidence that he testified to under the agreement that it would not be used in a criminal case against him. And then later, that evidence was used in a future criminal case against him. The prosecution used evidence that a previous prosecutor had said would not be used against him. So the prosecutors were fucking idiots. Well, the main issue here, as far as I can tell, is that the earlier prosecutor made a broad agreement that hampered future prosecutors' ability to come after Bill Cosby. Like, if you're a prosecutor ye back a decade and a half ago, and you're like, oh yeah, dude, this evidence won't come back against you, the problem is, like, you're a prosecutor. That is a binding statement, and it does make things harder for future prosecutors. Do you think they did it on purpose? No, because it seems that at the time, back in 2005, the reason he said that was so that Bill Cosby would feel comfortable providing that information in the service of a civil case, not a criminal case. So, basically, a previous prosecutor made a trade-off. You won't get criminally prosecuted for this information if you use it as part of a civil case. And then a later prosecutor tried to use it as part of a criminal case. There's no evidence this agreement was made. Well, it wasn't ever put into writing as far as the court records go, but it seems to be something widely agreed upon by the relevant parties. At least the original prosecutor isn't denying it. Now, keep in mind, this is the only reason any of this is happening is because Bill Cosby is a celebrity. Without the money and the clout, there's no way judges would ever go looking into stuff like this to peel it apart and find justice in the proceedings. With that being said, there are potentially a number of really, really harmful legal precedents that you could set by having prosecutors make agreements to not prosecute based on evidence provided now, and then later the prosecutors use it anyway. Why do they switch prosecutors? Separate cases, 2005 versus 2018, yeah. The problem is, I mean, ultimately the problem is that the original prosecutor was incredibly sloppy. Now, this is just my opinion, but if I have evidence that Cosby is using drugs to essentially date rape people or engage in sexual assault, I would not be passing up on the opportunity for a criminal conviction now if it meant that a civil conviction could happen along, you know? Like, if we're talking about somebody like Bill Cosby, somebody who's sexually assaulting and drugging people, I don't want civil cases to be won against him. I want a criminal case to be won against him. I want him in jail. So giving up the potential for that evidence to be used there is, well, at least in my opinion, and I'm not a lawyer, but it seemed like it was a, yeah, you gave up a lot of potential good there. Of course, now I don't believe that the 2018 prosecution knew about this agreement. Let's see. The appeals ruling that in light of these circumstances, the subsequent decision by successor district attorneys to prosecute Cosby violated Cosby's due process rights. The court's decision precludes any future prosecution, the LA Times adds. And while legal experts have highlighted the singularity of the agreement, campaigners fear that judgment could have a chilling effect for survivors on sexual assault, dampening the accountability achieved through the Me Too movement. Now, that is something that I want to push back on as well, okay? Just because this was an indication of prosecutorial incompetence, this is not a blow against Me Too in general, okay? This is not a legal precedent which was set as part of some broader pushback against the ability for people to hold powerful rapists to account. That's not what's happening here. It's a specific and insular and stupid act of incompetence that ended up boomeranging back like 20 years later, you know? But this is not like the beginning of pushback against Me Too. It's just not. That's not what it is. I wouldn't read into this too hard, you know? It can be a psychological hit, but you can't let that push back against a good movement. If there's any good to be found here, it's that whether he's in jail or not, Bill Cosby has despised the world around now. He is not going to have a moment's rest, okay? Every time he's out in public, he will be stared down and glared at and shouted at. There will not be a moment of peace for him from now until the day that he dies, which will probably be soon because it'll be induced by the stress of being hated by everyone. Now, he's probably going to surround himself with a few people who still don't hate him, but that can only insulate you to some extent. He's also incredibly old. He probably would have died in jail anyway. I think he's 83. Yes, the social ostracization will continue, probably worse than it would have before now that he's been let free on what a lot of people feel are BS, you know, technicalities. No, I know he has supporters, but I think the majority of people hate him. I think that's the majority. I mean, look at him. Like, look at this. Can he even see? Like, Jesus, you know? Yeah. He's blind? Oh, he actually is blind. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, he's a miserable piece of shit anyway. And we can rope this into our broader criticisms of conservatives because, hey, Bill Cosby was a pretty conservative guy. Don't talk about it so much on account of him being a beloved, like, you know, child TV star or whatever, but he totally was. Yeah, fuck Cosby. This isn't some, like, big, protracted conspiracy against Me Too, okay? Just don't believe that.